All right, we'll now call the city council regular meeting to order for December 13th. Please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. The invocation is my deputy mayor, Jim Bernard.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your love. Thank you for being with us tonight. Lead guide us as we go through this meeting. Give us the wisdom to do your will, to follow the Lord. Please protect our city, especially after those who've gone through these tornado storms recently. And let's not forget to look after our military, our law enforcement, and first responders, those in the hospitals, those that are exposed to us. Please protect our children, our women. Thank you, Lord, for your love. Thank you for being with us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As you see this. Clerk, you'll please call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire. Here. Councilmember McCure. Here. Councilmember Taylor. Here. Deputy Mayor Bernard.
Here.
Mayor Anderson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Item number 4, we have a federal EDA grant letter of support request to be for the Sebring Airport Building stormwater improvements. Megan is not with us. She's not on Zoom either. Staff, would you like to brief us on this?
Yes, Megan got a hold of me. Her office with the county is assisting Sebring Airport in putting in for this grant, and she's not here tonight because one of them is covering down Lake Placid, and she had a prior engagement, so neither could be here tonight. So probably her letter or email would cover that, but looking for all the municipality support and the letter signed by the mayor.
Okay. So we're looking for a motion to allow myself to sign this letter of support. Do we have any questions from council on this? Being done, is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve item number 3-4.
Is there a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second.
I do have one question. I wish the Megan was here. I have no issue with the idea that we're getting the grant for the Sebring Airport Authority, but I'd like to hope next time we see her that she talks about possible grants for the Avon Park.
That's what I asked Mark in the interim time.
But yes, and we'll reach out to her, but she's not getting the grant for it. She's just supporting and they put in for it themselves. Yes, they're just assisting like Megan assists us greatly in Avon Park.
Okay.
Couldn't ask for
Very
any
good. Thank you.
more help from them.
All right.
We will certainly explore to see if the city of Avon Park can get any. All right, we have a motion and a second. No further questions. We'll call a roll.
Councilmember McGuire.
Yes.
Councilmember McCure.
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Item number 5 is very similar. This will be a federal EDA grant letter of support request for master plan for outdoor recreation facilities for pandemic recovery.
Yeah, Casey Hart got a hold of me on this. They're applying for one, $100,000 and looking for support. Asked us to add some language. I added in some language in there to the city and how it would benefit us.
Okay. Any other questions? Looking for a motion.
Make a motion to go ahead and approve item number 3-5.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. We'll call the roll, please.
Councilmember McGuire.
Yes.
Councilmember McCure.
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you very much. Item number 6, we have the event request forms before the city parking lot at South Central and Main. It's the drive-through toys distribution without the words Worldwide Inc. We have a rep for them here.
No, but I did receive their certificate of insurance today.
She said the mayor knows about her as we do. They did it last year. They put in there, they've done a great job having that food and that, and I suppose it's good without her here. But
Yeah, they've done a handful of events. All their events that I've seen have gone off without issue. It's a great organization, didn't have lots of help, they get it done right. I have zero issue with them doing this at all.
Did a great job of food handling. They did. Well programmed, they went without a hitch, and they were very kind and gracious to everybody.
Agreed. Do we have a motion?
I will make a motion to approve item number 36.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Is this church based out of Orlando?
So typically, she actually lives here,
Oh,
and they use different church organizations to do different events. She's from Orlando, and that's where most of her friends are in Orlando. So most of their actual church help, if they have an event, they're probably gonna have 20 or 30 people that are helping, same church or whatever. Most of those people are probably coming from Orlando, and most of the actual food donations typically come from the coast or Tampa or Orlando.
this location we got selected because she was. Oh, all right.
It's the same one she used last year.
Yep. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember McCure,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
motion passes.
Item number 7, this is the minutes from November 22nd, 2021. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember McCure,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
motion passes.
Item number 8, we have a revision to the minutes from November 8th. Chris, you want to explain?
Yes, I neglected to put in the TDC appointment for Councilmember McGuire, so that's the automatic.
And Deputy Bernard for CRA, and how this came to my attention, the TDC wanted a formal letter from me saying who you chose to be on CDC. We want to put the record of who's in this area. So,
Got it.
we not dispute it.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve item number C8.
Is there a second? Please call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember McCure,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
motion passes.
Item number 9, this will be the minutes from November 20th. This will be our city council training seminar workshop. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve item number C9.
We have a motion and a second. No questions? We'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember McCure,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
motion passes.
Item number 10, this will be the public hearing, second reading, ordinance number 23-2021. Jerry, will you read the short title on the record?
Ordinance of the city of Avon Park, Florida, providing recitals as to the council intent. Amending the city code section 98-5 by amending residential payment plans to provide for disconnection of service for non-payment and adding payment plan regulations for commercial connections. Provide for codification and repeal of conflicting codes, ordinances and resolutions, provide for civility, provide for effective date.
All right, this is a second reading, ordinance number 23-2021. The public hearing is now open. Anyone wishing to ask questions, make any comments, can now do so. Seeing the army of takers that we have out there are not willing to speak, public hearing is now closed. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve item number C10. Or 23-2021.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? We'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember McCure,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
motion passed.
Item number 11, this is resolution 2021-24.
This resolution of the city of Avon Park, Florida, provide for council approval of interest rate commercial capacity payment plan mortgage notes, provide for conflicts, severability, and effective date. This is a matter of information. In the previous ordinance passed allowing the commercial entities to have a capacity payment plan. We did it before, we did 5.25 for the residential payment plans. This is 1.5 commercial. plans. Subject to your approval.
So this is the same thing as last time, only allowing for commercial businesses to do the same. Do we have any questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve item number D11, resolution number 2021-24.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. We'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember McCure,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
motion passed.
Thank you. Item number 12 is resolution 2021-25.
The resolution of the city council of Avon Park, Florida, amending the lien reduction policies and procedures to include plan for the city council to hear a large code enforcement lien reduction request for finding of fact. The, special magistrate is not available. We'd like to protect it. Okay. So just as a matter of information, the special magistrate, the one who works for us, we have to go out to RFP for a new one. But there are people that are anxious to get lien reduction in excess of 30%, which requires an actual hearing. So talk it over and decide if we just go ahead and propose to you guys and add that to it, since it was something we didn't anticipate when we did the original plan. This will allow you to hear these hearings, and I'll tell you there are two that are coming up with your time if you decide to go ahead and accept this change.
One of the reasons behind this is last time we were looking for a magistrate for quite some time. Whether it was justified for some of these people that we may have to wait 30, 60, 90, 120 days before we find another one. Hopefully we'll find one in a week and this will all be for nothing, but it could be a long time before we can find another magistrate. So.
And Mayor, to add to that, the two that if you accept this and hear tonight, they were scheduled to be on the magistrates to go in front of them.
Right. Any questions?
I do remember though, we went a very long time on that.
Yep. Probably for a
Well,
while.
we had to give double up the efforts. Try to catch up. We did catch up. Did a great job.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Question, so let me make sure I understand this right. We're going to make the decisions until we get a new one, or we're going to start pretty much that's what we're.
Yes. If this passes, that's what we will do. Any other questions?
So what that means is you'll be taking testimony under oath with regard to facts associated with this request, and that's what the special magistrate will do in that place. And he'll test who he thinks valid based on the facts and so on.
Definitely not something to be taken lightly.
And this is something that provides 60, 90 days plus.
Until we find another magistrate. Which we hope we do very quickly. Yes. Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve item number D12, 2021-25.
Okay, is there a second?
I say,
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
yes.
Councilmember McCure,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
motion passed.
Wasting no time. Item number 13, code enforcement hearing. H. Kelly at 208 Ernest East End Street. Jerry, do you want to give us a little recap?
I'll just if anybody that's going to give any testimony associated with this application request, could please stand up and raise the right hand. Include code enforcement. And then the clerk would swear them in.
Do you swear?
Apparently the applicant's not here, so,
Yes, it is.
okay, well, you need to raise your hand. Right.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You so swear, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. So at this point, I would let the code enforcement person, Randy, give his presentation as to what the facts are as he sees them.
Thank you, council. Basically, the first one is pretty straightforward. 208 Ernest D. Sims is a vacant piece of property off of Cummings in the city limits of Avon Park. This particular case consists of approximately 7 cases. Of those 7, 6 of them are demos. I'm sorry, 6 of them are abatements. One of them is a demo of a structure that ensued back in 2007. So we fast forward during that time, it was these 7 cases were worked by 5 different code enforcement officers within the city limits of Avon Park. These particular cases went in front of 4 separate magistrates during the time from 2007 to current. An overview of these cases start out with basically overgrown property. There is a current lien on this location for the sum of, I believe it's $9,724.23. All of these are hard costs, and hard costs being these were part of abatement fees where city personnel had to be paid to go in there and cut the grass. There were charges of approximately just short of about $7,351 for the demo of a structure back in 2007 that was never recovered. 4 different abatement fees, postage, recording of liens, and that's how we get to the, actually, this was 9724, but I believe it actually went up because
98.
yeah, because Ashley found one other case that made it to the current of 98.65 I can stipulate that all statutory requirements were met under Florida Statute 162 governing code enforcement. They are documented with the findings of fact and law and order conclusions by each magistrate. And the most recent one was dated 8/25/2020 by then Special Magistrate Danis. So basically, I was contacted by Mr. Kelly. He was going to, I believe he got the lot in a tax sale. I believe he can go ahead and clarify that. At the point when he came into the office, I advised him that the property had to be in compliance for 90 days before a lien reduction request would even be heard. Mr. Kelly, the entire time, kept in contact with me, very cordial, very optimistic that he was going to do something good with this property. After 90 days, I think right on the 90th day, he called me again and said, please come out, do an inspection, make sure the property is in order. It was. And then I explained the lien reduction process to him, and here we are today as part of that. He was set to go to the special magistrate in December. Actually, yes, it was I think it was the 2nd, sorry. And there was an issue with the magistrate, and therefore he's not with the city anymore. So basically, he was not the violator at the time of all these violations. He bought it in the beginning, I believe it was like June of this year, kept it in compliance. It is continued that I believe the photo that was provided to you was only a couple days ago, proving he continues to keep it in compliance. He paid the requisite $325, $300 deposit plus $25 application fee. And for this hearing, And he, at the point, I asked him what he was requesting for a reduction. And per the application, I believe it was a 60% reduction off of the $9,865.32.
$3,946.13.
That's right.
You come up with that 60% reduction or just a?
That was Mr. Kelly's.
Okay. So did he, once he bought the property, how long did it take him to get it up to code?
Immediately. Well, it was immediate, but it had to stay like that for 90 days.
Okay.
But it was immediate.
So you consider this minor deviation once he owned it?
I think you have to define minor.
But I think the problem is these matrices don't really apply to new owners as much as they apply to the existing owner. It's creating a violation, which is a fault. As I mentioned before, when we did it, we would have to tweak it more to make it right. I have a few suggestions for tweaks that I will present to you at a future meeting, but having to do with new owners. But things you want to consider, basically, what is reasonable for the amount of time to continue in compliance, and if the property was obtained by paying off the person that had created the violation, such that they got money that they would not have otherwise been entitled to because the liens exceed the value of the property, things like that, or things you want to consider. Just my suggestion. We'll make it tighter with the future amendment policy.
Okay. Council have questions for Randy?
Well, I think that was the only one I have. I think the percentage of the reduction by the owner is, I'm in agreement with that without any problem. I think it's very gracious.
I guess my question is, do the city has a maximum amount of percentage that we present to the applicant, or we allow the applicant to give us a percentage? How does that work?
Well, he's suggesting a percentage. I think the maximum that they can get is 90%. That's if everything would be perfect and there were the people that created the violation under matrices, and I wouldn't perceive that it'd be much different for even new owners, because you have expenses associated with code enforcement, things like that.
Okay, and my next question is, if there was a sale that he purchased this piece of land, and the old owner, received a certain amount of money, we couldn't make the old owner pay any of this?
No.
Because,
under the property.
but once he owns it, then it's his responsibility.
Yes.
But because the purchase was made and the old owner received money for that land and owe us money because they was out of compliance, we couldn't get anything.
I believe that was incorrect because I believe he bought this during a tax sale, which means that the old owner did not receive any compensation for said sales. It was sold on the courthouse steps. Therefore, I believe there would have been a lien, or the county would have tried to get whatever the property taxes were for said piece of property, but I doubt very much. If there was anything excess of that amount, then the city is actually entitled to that amount, and we get notification from the clerk of courts, recording, and then we lay claim to that money. So that's how it works.
If there was extra.
There has been 3 or 4 cases recently because of the value of the property has gone up during these times.
That satisfy your question? Any other questions?
She asked the same thing.
Anyone wish to hear anything from property owner?
Property owner should have an opportunity to present if he wants to. Do you want to present anything?
Okay. See,
He has to answer the questions if you have any questions.
No one has any
Just kinda
questions?
I'm curious to hear what your plans are for it, if I'm allowed to ask.
Yep, please come to the microphone.
I'm gonna get you a top one way or another.
Please give your name and address for the record.
Herbert Kelly, 1855 North Phoenix Road at Avon Park.
Ask the question.
Oh, I'm just curious if you could tell what kind of plans we have planned for the property.
But I got a house right behind, right in the front of it. So I
Oh,
just got, want the whole thing, because it's always messy and junky
oh,
and keep cleaning and stuff.
oh.
Good
So,
man.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Thank you for doing that.
So you just wanna own the piece of land, you're not planning on building?
No, I'm not gonna build that.
Okay.
No, it's.
It's a vacant lot, right?
Yes, it's was looking so bad over there. I've been trying to get it, but it was in probate or something. We finally have that.
I understand.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Paul?
Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry, is there any reason, legally speaking, why the 60% reduction would not be legally appropriate?
Oh, I can't think of anything at this moment.
Is there any suggestions by council or any motions?
My suggestion is to use a motion to accept his offer. Approximately $3,940.
Okay, that's a motion.
Including, that's a motion, including plus our profit at that.
Okay, so that's the problem. It couldn't be plus hard costs because as it was stated,
Yeah, plus our cost.
the majority of it is.
All of this is hard cost.
Right, all of it is hard cost. So it would have to just be a simple motion for a percentage rate reduction or not at all,
I make a motion to include 60%.
which would result in the amount of $3,946.13. Okay.
I'd like to see that.
We have a motion and a second.
Okay, but I just assume that the motion is made on the basis of findings that the value of the property be added back to the tax rolls and being, the neighbors being cleared of having bad looking property and so on. Those are the reasons that you're taking this reduction.
That's my reason.
I much appreciate that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further questions, comments?
Actually, I have one. Is there going to be how this is paid, and is there a deadline by when it is to be paid by? So, because we need to know that so we can release the lien at that time.
Is there anything stipulated in our matrix that would,
So the stipulates that they would enter into an agreement whereby they would agree that, you know, that in exchange for this, they've accepted this amount in the council and so on. And so the agreement, we haven't done yet, but that would be the point at which you would have to pay the money. It's got to be a one-page or two-page agreement.
that would be approved at our next meeting or?
Yeah, it's just a right reach. And other than these three groups, it's gonna follow what you said here, so it just needs to be signed by the mayor based on what the minutes are.
Okay. So was your intention for 30 days?
No, I would say 15 days.
15 days?
Yeah.
Is that included in your motion, Jim?
Yes.
Okay. Is that included in your second? Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second for no more than 15 days. The amount will be $3,946.13. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll call a roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember McCure,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard,
Yes,
Mayor Anderson,
Yes,
motion passes.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
much appreciated. All right. Up next, we have item number 14. This will be code enforcement hearing for Roger Cardenas, the 601 Fairview Terrace.
If anybody's going to present evidence in this matter, please stand and raise the right hand. Clerk will swear them in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
And you just wait until the city presents their side of it. Okay.
Go ahead with the factual basis.
Yes.
Okay, this particular parcel is completely different than the first one. 601 Fairview Terrace, new owner is Roger Garganus. Much like the other one, it is the same, whereas he is not the original violator. I believe he purchased the property in a foreclosure. This property has a lien of $20,542.30. The original and only violation for this was chipping and peeling paint. Issue per code. Been in compliance for more than 90 days, obviously, just like the other one. The lien amount was derived from a daily running fine of $100 a day, starting on 9/23/2020 and ending on 4/16/2021. There's minimum hard cost in this one, approximately $42.30. Plus, if you wanted to figure any kind of manpower issue, but it's $42.30 for postage, recording of the lien, and that's it. Everything else to $20,000. Yeah, $20,500 of this lien was running fine, $100 a day. The $42.30 is the hard cost incurred by the city. I met with Mr. Garganus. He dropped off the check that he has paid the $345 reference fees. Asked Mr. Garganus what his offer was to the city. That's where we have the $500 flat fee for the property. I can attest to all statutory requirements that under statute 162 have been met. Findings of fact conclusion by law and order dated 8/25/20 by then Special Magistrate Tom Thanis.
All right. Mr. Garganus, do you wish to present? Please give your name and address for the record.
Roger Garganus, 1315 North Lake Isis Drive, Avon Park.
Yes, sir.
Just for the record, myself and my son-in-law own that house together.
This is Mr. Chad Pritchett.
So Chad Pritchett, 1515 Isis Lake Drive, Avon Park, Florida. Like you said, our situation is substantially different. There are no real hard costs, or at least less than $100. The fine was the vast majority of the fine was attributed to a daily fine of $100 a day for not being in compliance. As soon as we purchased the property, we brought it into compliance. And it's a real nice looking house at this point. Paint the floor. And we've done it multiple times in the same city. I think that's the whole idea of enforcement, bring the properties back into.
Remove some and block. Okay. Anything
Just
else?
to add to that, we put a lot of tax money into the Avon Park tax base. I developed Twin Lakes Point, which was a vacant piece of Orange Grove land that now has 54 houses in it, which are, considerably taxed.
Upper end housing.
Right, up rent houses, and then we've done several like this. I just purchased one at 405 East Lake Jackson Avenue. You go by it now and look at it, give me 3 or 4 months, and then go back by and look at it. So I'm the one to be paid the tax bill on it, but we've done several of them. We're here. I've been here all my life. So is Chad. We're trying to improve, and I've been in the city and intend to keep doing that. So.
All right, questions? Mr. Garganus?
So what month was the property purchased?
We purchased April 1st.
And you bought it in compliance?
Immediately.
Okay.
The outside, the first thing we started working on by painting, putting a new roof.
Did you not know that this had this?
We honestly missed it.
It was in foreclosure, and then we were working on the whole time, and when we went to run the title, we got it under contract to sell it. We had missed that lien on it.
Was there a title search done?
We didn't do a title search until the end, we got ready to sell it. And I don't think the lien that's recorded is near the size of the lien that exists either.
But the owner of the property did not tell you that the property was under.
Foreclosure sale.
Foreclosure.
Foreclosure sale.
Okay, so you never spoke to the. Okay.
So similar to last one, they bought on a tax sale, we bought at the courthouse steps at the foreclosure sale.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So you offering $500 on a $20,000 debt to the city?
Correct.
Well, one thing you need to look at is that $100 a day. I mean, I've learned a few things. Normally, that's not what we do. We try not to miss those things. We flat miss that one. But I never realized there's $100 a day just recurring fee that absolutely, I mean, when we found out what it was 40-some thousand. But when we went back and visited with Randy and told him what we had done, then he I guess you'd say, moved that back to the date that we did that, which was April, and we immediately went to work on it.
And how long you guys been buying property on the steps of courthouse?
This was foreclosure site.
Foreclosure. How long you been buying foreclosure property? I mean, I'm just asking the question because if you've been in this business for a minute here, and you know, you used to buying foreclosure property, you know, there's certain steps you're gonna follow. And that way you catch stuff like this. So I'm just trying to figure out how long you've been doing it. And is you new at it? That's why you missed it, or you've been doing this a while, and what?
Well, so we've done this for a while. There's a couple things in play. This is a new scenario by the city. There was a scenario in the past where you would have gone to code enforcement and it didn't go through the magistrate. So this is a whole new scenario. In addition to that, let's just say that this was a hard number and the city would never negotiate and would not do anything. Then these properties would not sell. They would just sit there.
I agree.
Right?
I
And
agree.
then at some point, code enforcement wouldn't serve the purpose. Either the city would get it back, I guess, at some later stage, if it's sat there for 10 years.
Or longer.
Or longer, and well, I mean, I admit we missed it, but we just, on the other hand, that substantially different than the one you just listened to, where the city walked away from $6,000 worth of hard costs. The city is walking away from, well, actually, the city would be profiting $450 on top of the $43 that they actually have in hard costs in this. That's the really, really important detail here. The city has no hard costs in this.
So the new process that Jeff was mentioning was basically our matrix and our resolution to that effect. So previously, the council heard most of these requests, and some of them were flat out completely removed, and some of them were removed at an arbitrary number that the council decided at the time. So the point of this matrix was to make it more fair and have the rules apply the same to everyone. So one of the questions that we have before us tonight is if we want to apply the matrix to this case. If we did apply the matrix to this case, I feel it would be able to be reduced to 90%. If we went by the matrix, which would be the maximum amount, which would basically put the fine at $2,054.23. So that's one option that we have. We don't necessarily have to apply the matrix, but then it opens the door to what's the next person going to say if theirs isn't reduced by that same amount.
I agree with what you said about almost everything before this was forgiven. And our city attorney for years advises to come up with a plan, and which finally made sense. And finally made an agreement a few months ago, and that's how we came up with this matrix. I don't know whether anybody showed it to you or talked to you about possible reduction, but the mayor is correct in saying that the maximum we could reduce this is somewhere between 80 and 90%. And that's why I said the last case, the gentleman reduces 60%, which was, I thought, very gratifying on his part of the city. But,
And the difference there is that, you know, that property had to actually be demoed by the city.
yeah,
It was hard cost.
yeah.
It's hard cost.
But I don't have a problem of a minimum of 90%, I mean, a maximum 90% reduction, which would make it to 2,000 plus you said there.
2054-23.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments, council?
If you do it again, you could be in big trouble.
Yeah,
So you've been warned.
Well, are you in this deal to make money?
We're in to be what's fair, Roger. and this
Well, I
is-
understand, but what I'm
That's all.
saying is you just took a loss of thousands of dollars and we got a hard cost and we're giving you a profit.
Rob, how much?
I think
It's
the,
$450, but you're not going backwards.
obviously, the thing that we're trying to do here is to make sure that all the properties get rehab, which is something that you've done, something you guys have done a lot of. We very much appreciate it. At the same time, we have this rule that we've established with the matrix, and we're trying to be fair to everybody, right? So we could have just as easily put a different provision in that matrix whenever we made it up to 99% reduction, but we didn't. And so that's the matrix that we've lived by with all the requests that have come forward to us thus far. So unless you want to change the matrix, that's what we're on right now. So, you know, going from 20,000, which is an insane number, down to 2,000 is more livable. It's definitely not something that you're gonna feel good about, but it's a whole heck of a lot better than 20,000. Don't you agree?
Agreed. Yeah.
From what I understand, that, you know, the property is basically sold and you can get it on down the road and not make the same mistake next time, right? Okay, is there any other questions? Comments? You guys have anything else to present? Okay. Is there a motion?
I'm making a motion that we accept the reduction of 90% with the total cost coming out to 2,000 and
$54.23.
there you go.
Is there a second? I'll second. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember McCure,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes,
Deputy Mayor Bernard,
Yes,
Mayor Anderson,
Yes,
motion passes.
thanks again, guys.
And how long do we expect till we get the lien release on?
I'll put together an agreement this week and I'll get that over to you once that's signed and given to the city manager with the money, then they'll have the release for you right then.
Okay.
is that a
All right.
15-day too?
Yes, it'll be less than 15 days.
Be less-
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item number 15 will be the CDBG conflict of interest disclosure. Antonio Jenkins.
Evening,
good evening.
Antonio Jenkins, Guardian. I promise to be much less trouble this time. Here before you this evening for a conflict of interest disclosure and waiver request. We're in the process of servicing a CDBG homeowner, Miss Audrey Benjamin of 325 Joe Hilton Street. Potential conflict that's before us is she has a daughter who is an employee of the city as an administration assistant. Guardian has reviewed it, the city attorney has reviewed it, and you should have the city attorney's resolution there that says it is not a direct conflict and it is able to be waived. Just so you know, if it's granted, that waiver is granted here, Guardian will work with the city manager's office, and then we have to get final approval from DEO and HUD. So that's what we're here seeking that waiver.
I'll just simply ask the city attorney, so we're legally able to accept this, correct?
Yes. you wish.
Okay. All right, so we're cleared legally to do it. It'll also be vetted by 2 other organizations, so I think it is more than above board. Is there any questions?
It's ultimately the decision will be made by the,
DEO and HUD,
yeah,
they will make the ultimate decision.
but this is to choose to go forward with here and let them make the decision.
Sure. Any questions or comments?
Yes, I have some questions. Was this grant, what date was this grant approved?
Grant was approved back in 2019 is when I don't have the grant application right in front of me, but it was in 2019.
And it was approved in 2019, and right now is what? What we're doing to it now? Review of how this was caught?
Yes, what happened is at the time of application, before we service any applicant, we always do a secondary review.
Okay.
The applicant, the
On
homeowner,
secondary review on all applicants?
on all applicants, on all income, on all ownership, we need to make sure it's clear before we move forward with the service.
Okay,
During the secondary review, we found that the homeowner did not list her daughter on the application. There's a conflict of interest section on the application. She failed to do so, but through conversation, because we always follow up through conversation, we found out that she had a daughter working for the city. And now that's why we're kind of retroactively going through this. We would usually do this upfront as soon as it's listed, but failure to disclose that information and then finding it out later, we have to still go through the process if we're going to service that out.
How long did the Jeanette work for the city? Or how long has she worked for the city?
About a year.
About a year. How long ago did Aubrey put in for this?
So it would have been, if it was a year ago, she would have put in this application far earlier than that, somewhere between 10 months and 12 months.
So she put in for the application far long before Jeanette actually worked for the city.
okay, she put in for the application long before Ms. Wanzer worked for the city, and it was approved. And then later on, you find out that she's a city employee. So if she put in for the application and wasn't living with her mother at the time, quite naturally, her name wouldn't have been on the application.
Conflict of interest, you don't have to reside within the home. You just have to disclose if there's a potential conflict, i.e. city employee, homeowner receiving a city-approved grant. So it's not a matter of cohabitating in the same household. It's a matter of disclosing if there's a real
Doing
or
that
a
second
potential
review,
conflict.
doing that second review.
Correct, that's when we find out.
It should have been disclosed. That's what you're saying?
Correct, and that's when it was disclosed. And
Okay.
apparently the reason for that is the daughter got a job during this particular process before we can originally service the homeowner at 325 Tilbury, Ms. Bridget.
So in your opinion, there was no effort to conceal this in any way?
No fraudulent, no fraudulent intent behind, the oversight or not listing it there. Obviously, she couldn't list her as a city employee at the time because she's not a city employee, the daughter was not a city employee.
Understood. Any other questions? There a motion?
I motion to approve item number D15. Conflict of interest disclosure, Cdbg conflict of interest disclosure.
Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. No further questions? We'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire?
Yes.
Councilmember McCure? Yes. Councilmember Campbell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard?
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
motion passed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jenkins.
Thank you.
All right, item number 16, we have quotes from Kim Horn for wastewater and water master plans. We have one of them on Zoom.
Yes.
All right. We had asked you for quotes for our water and wastewater master plans. Do you want to go over what exactly you are quoting here and what we would still have to accomplish in order to actually run new lines?
Yes, sir. For the wastewater master plan, both master plans are pretty similar. For the wastewater, we're looking at updating the GIS mapping of the utilities and creating atlas maps for the city, which the city does not currently have. Next, as part of it, we're looking at population and flow projections for 5, 10, 20 years down the road so that we can analyze the system based off of future flows and come up with improvements improvements that may be required right now, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, and 20 years down the road, so that the city can include these improvements and cost in their CIP. So for water, it's pretty much the same thing. I mean, we're creating GIS atlas maps, looking at flow projections, and then coming up with a list of recommended improvements, up to 20 years down the road. And some things we could look at, like on the wastewater side of things, we could look at different things like Lake Tulane's lift station. We can look at getting that off of the lake, stuff like that. We can look at and evaluate as part of these master plans. And we put together hydraulic models so that we can appropriately size lines for future developments. And what these do not include, we might be able to say, okay, here's a future development to the north. It's going to require an 8-inch water main to serve that development. But what it's not going to include is design plans, like engineering design, like plan and profile sheets and permitting. That would be a next step.
Okay, but you're going to produce, as part of the master plan, drawings that they'll be able to put on the wall when they get these requests for new service at, and look at it and say, well, this particular project here is going to have, even though it's a small project, this area here requires a 12-inch force main improvement. So they'll know what to tell people they're going to need to build, and we can work with the reimbursement agreements and things like that after the fact. My concern at the last meeting raising this issue was that right now we don't know if a big subdivision came in, what size will we run? Will we run 8-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch, 14-inch? That's what you're going to produce with this, along with, I guess, the lift station improvements that are necessary as well.
That is correct. And also part of this will be evaluating the existing system. Let's say if there are 2-inch water mains and you're not meeting required fire flow, then those would be included in the improvements, the existing improvements right now.
Okay. For the actual,
I'm sorry.
you go ahead.
The master plan, is that going to include what the existing sizes are now so that we can keep an accurate record? And what the lines are located for people that, we won't have to say in the future, well, we don't know where they are, we'll have to go out and locate in front of you.
With those, the maps that we're going to create, they're based off of the GIS information, and we are going to coordinate with the city. I mean, the goal is to show the size of the water mains and force mains, and to show where they're located approximately, but we will coordinate with the city staff and to mark up the atlas map saying, okay, we know it's on the north side of the road, and then we'll update the maps accordingly. This project will not include subsurface utility exploration to really verify the sizes and to verify the exact locations. We're showing approximate locations based off of the GIS information, and then the city will mark it up.
Yeah, I understand that. My concern is if they go out and locate it and they know where it's at, exactly where it's at in different locations, then that can be added to the map after the fact without huge expenses.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Any questions? Anyone? All right. Just that question. Brendan. Name and address. You know the deal.
Excuse me. Good evening, and thank you so much. Brenda Gray, 410 East Lakeview Drive, Avon Park. My question is who am I talking to?
Jameson.
Mr. Jameson, is that will the plan include the current heights, what do you call those things? Force mains, yes. Will it include the current one that's already in the ground now?
Yeah, that's what I was asking as well, is it include the sizes as well as approximate locations, but which can be made into exact locations that we locate in the future for other people that are digging.
There you go. Okay.
That is correct.
That is correct, right?
That is correct.
Thank you.
As far as the grand picture of the limits of Avon Park, where are those lines going to be drawn and who's going to dictate that? Obviously, we have to stop somewhere, right?
But you can't go any further than the county line, you can't go any further than the Sebring, so, you know, the only way to fight it going east to west.
Right.
So, yeah, those will be the only open areas as to what's gonna happen.
Who will make those lines, I guess?
Well, that'll, you know, that's something that, you know, for right now, he's gonna do with reasonably foreseeable future up to 20 years. That's the way these are generally done, is, you know, reasonable population growth and so on, and where it's gonna happen. And, but in the future, you guys are gonna need to do a vision, again, the vision where you guys wanna build, and where you're wanting to expand the city in the future.
I think
And how far you're willing to run the water and wastewater before it's a part of the city.
Sure. I think the most obvious answer is the biggest inclusion other than new development would be Avon Park Lakes, since how we already have scattered houses out there all over the place.
I think we could most likely start with the phase, phase that area, as you say, A through Z, starting A, as James developed it. Working along with him to get the design permitting done. And we can start doing that in phases, because it's gonna take us longer to develop that than it is to design it. So we would actually go start that, starting in a phase. And we can look at it, suggestions where the council would like us to start at. And then we can start there and sweep across. We really want to hopscotch all over the place, with equipment all over the place. Prefer to move from, say, left to right, back left to right, and so on, so forth.
It's a little easier to do wastewater simply because you can have lift stations, in various locations that pump, because everything doesn't need to be gravity or force fed. But you're gonna have more of a problem with water because you're gonna need to plan that well, otherwise you have to put a new water plant out somewhere. It's more of a problem, or a big booster station. So,
Okay. So with these initial drawings include Avon Park Lake, the majority of
The water site.
so it's come to my attention that there's a potential for small dead end lines or lines that need to be connected, or little things that pop up here and there. Does this include the ability to fix those little things like that?
Yes, I believe, James, you're gonna show where we have two lines of road tax, that will increase those lines, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That is correct. And we'll be looking at evaluating and seeing where, you can better improve the system, like, taking away those dead end lines, like you mentioned, and looping the water main system to improve the pressures. And then we would include a cost to do so.
Okay. What is the time horizon for getting this job done?
I would estimate around like 5 to 7 months for both of the projects.
Okay.
Is that total for the two?
That was the total for both projects, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
And I'd like to see, keep the buildings separate for that, and anything else, and the water separate from the sewer, because I anticipate that you guys are gonna want to add a main extension fee, which you'll be able to pour this cost into that main extension fee. When you extend the main yourselves, as opposed to somebody else, or you pay the developer who's only the 6-inch and has to have a 12-inch, you pay the additional upsizing. That upsizing now can get reimbursed when somebody else connects to that in a reasonable future.
So it's come to my attention, we have several developers that are looking at building potentially some large subdivisions and or apartment complexes and things like that close to the city that are not currently connected. So with this master plan, they could then go hire their own engineer to engineer everything according to that master plan and get this project done much quicker than it would take us to eventually do each individual phase, right? Yeah. All right, is there any other questions?
Yes, what is the projected year, for them to start this next year?
So this master plan, like you just said, will be done in 5 to 7 months,
But starting like next year?
starting immediately upon approval.
Oh,
I just want to let you know, we have hydrants out there.
What do you-
1910.
The thing of it is, once
We
you
have
have
manhole covers that are 1928.
once you have this in place, under the GIS system and a database, you can basically start keeping track of blowing off dead ends and, replacing, exercising hydrants and exercising valves and all that stuff, subject to personnel issues.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the wonderful thing about master plans, is you got everything there, capable and ready for you to keep a database on.
And just for a little bit of history, for the new council people. So we get requests for water all the time, in different areas of the city. Obviously, Avon Park Lakes is a big one. There's a lot of people that live out there, and a lot of them are, let's say 100 feet or 500 feet outside of what we currently have. Previous administrations decided to just run random lines to these places that were, let's just say, inadequate, being nice. And it's caused a lot of headaches for us because they can't support anything farther than what they're actually running to right now. So for example, if you have a, one section of land, like 600-acre section of land that might have, 300 or 400 houses in it, if one person wanted water, sometimes they would just run a line to that one person, completely ignoring everybody else around them. So if anybody else wanted water, it would overtax that line and basically have to redo all that work that they just did. So it didn't make a lot of sense, and it's caused us a lot of headaches. And so this master plan basically quantifies everything, tells us exactly what we have, and gives us a clear plan to actually truthfully develop the city going forward.
And you could make types of evaluations like, it'd be nice to be able to give you water, but, we just can't afford to do it because the payback is 40 years.
Right.
So, that's the loss of the life of the pipe. So that's, it's sort of decision you do make at that point.
And it will greatly help out future council groups and future admins, future public works people. So we're doing everybody in the future a favor. Any other questions?
The only question I have, I know that this council asked Henry Horn Jameson to go out and get this quote for us. I appreciate that very much. Obviously, we all know that we need this, but is there a reason why we should go out and look at other quotes too to compare, or does this council think that this is good to go as is?
I'm fine with it. What's the likelihood of being able to get another quote in a reasonable amount of time?
We'd have to go out to bid. The reason we didn't hear, because you're under your continuing engineering service agreement with them. Other than that, we have to go out to bid.
Yeah.
These values are lower than the continuing contract cap, so you can do it under a continuing contract if you wish.
So you're happy with this?
Well, that's totally up to you. I mean, I'm just saying lawfully, you're within the realm of continuing contract engineering services.
Okay.
As a city manager, I certainly am, and to go off what the mayor said, because once I got here, Rick, I told him stop running these lines 2 inch here and there to somebody that, lives a mile away and that it's greatly needed. It's not my forte like it is Rick's or Jameson, but these are needed bad. And the mayor brought up people, maybe a development close to the city. We're looking at 2 good sized developments in the city that we still question whether we have the water capacity at this point, right? And sewer too. So, I mean, these are in the city limits.
And to add to what I said, I raised this issue, in the previous meeting, and I'm a great believer in these things, and sooner the better.
Yeah.
Like frankly, because you guys are about 10, 15 years behind on having something like this.
It's cheap insurance in the long run.
We get anywhere from 5 to 7 water availability forms a day. And we'll turn them down. I mean, we're putting in meters where the water is existing by all means, but we're not running lines. And I bet you, if you went back and looked, we probably turned 200 people down in a year. And that's not that crazy.
Well, I can't help
that math. That's terrible.
I can't help myself, but to try and beat them a little bit, and that is to say, we have a 10-year capital improvement plan for water facilities that we have to do with Central Florida Regional Planning Council, and they're going to need data for this. And I would think that you're going to be producing that as part of this. Is that true? Am I off on that?
No, I think you're right.
Well, Jeff Schumacher here,
So Jeff could basically chime in. Well, this be helpful if, ask, so we can ask them to include, coordinating. with you on this?
Yep. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was waiting for my turn. Yeah, this actually would be extremely helpful for us in a number of ways. I know we're going to discuss in a minute. I think the city's updated their 10-year water supply plan. But as the city manager noted, we've got a number of developments that are on the horizon right now that we're in constant coordination with the city on in terms of supply and demand and where those lines are going to come from and what's serving, the areas around these areas that we're looking at. But yeah, this would be extremely helpful. And part of the work that, we're going to discuss in a second would be population projections, looking at demands on the immediate 10-year horizon, but ultimately the 20-year horizon. So yeah, I would see that there's a lot of overlap and a lot of coordination between the work that, a master plan could be put together with the work we're going to help the city out with their 10-year water supply plan.
Perfect. Okay, anything to add, Jameson?
No, sir.
What kind of a start date would you have next month? Would you be able to start in January?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve item number D16, motion number 1 and motion number 2.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember McCure,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard,
Yes,
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
motion passed.
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Item number 17, discussion of iPads for city council members. David?
An item near and dear to my heart.
Uh-oh.
The amount of baby birch trees we've killed is horrendous. So as far as iPads go, when Mark told me about this to come up with information right now, he has an iPad 12.9 inch, but he's got the beefy 10-pound keyboard attached to it, so it's pretty heavy. But really right now, the 3 different iPads that are out there, and I did contact Jerry through San Antonio, talked to the city clerk there, and I mean, they're very happy running on iPads, where initially even she said, when we started out, they thought, I don't know. And now you couldn't get them out of their hands.
Sure.
Right. So just mention that there are only 900 people in the city of San Antonio, and they did that, just trying to make you feel bad.
Yeah, appreciate that.
And they're using the iPad Air.
Yeah, so again, depending on what size you wanted and everything else, we've included in the pages, the cost between the difference. Found out that they're just a little bit cheaper if you get them through the Apple store, through the government, state and local purchase there, not by a whole lot, but I mean, when you go online, you're probably a wag of $200-300, depending on where you buy them and what their availability is.
Sure.
But again, you go from a 10.9 inch, the iPad Air, all the way up to the 12.9 inch, and the higher you go, the better the resolution, the bigger the screen. So it just depends on what you want to have and how easy it is to read. So.
Yeah, so a sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11. So basically anything that's roughly 11 inches long is going to appear like a sheet of paper. I don't see any need to necessarily go any bigger than that from a, these things are surfing the web and downloading the council packet. So there's really no need for anything special as far as performance goes. I would be perfectly fine with whatever's the cheapest myself.
Yeah, you'll want to also have a handy link to Unicode as well, so you can pull up your own code quickly.
Yeah, we have the LDRs and basically everything that's on the city website there. Worth noting that this would be, Jerry, maybe you want to talk about what we can and can't use these for.
Well, I mean, it depends on how you set it as a policy, but just bear in mind, whatever you put on there, whatever you receive, is going to be a public record. So you just, it's kind of hard to get around that technically. Private emails are not public records, even if they're on city computers. But you gotta show them to somebody in order for that to be determined. Usually it's a judge, and so on. So I just simply say, the more you avoid it, the better it is.
Yeah.
We can, I can see if I can put something together, basically, just to briefly tell you what to expect with regard to those things. It's more of an issue when you establish Facebook pages and things like that, and you start using them for your commentary on government stuff. That's more of it.
Safe to say, use it for city business only and you won't have any.
Say, use it for city business only, it won't be an issue.
There you go. Keep that in mind.
Well, I personally would think that I would prefer to go to the middle one, which is a 11-inch Pro. It also has 128 gig as compared to the iPad Air, which is 64. The larger, the more there is, the faster it is. So the difference between that and the Air, I'd rather go up to the middle price one. I don't necessarily need to go to the 12.9-inch, which is actually very helpful for me reading, but I can always turn my glasses if I need to.
If you mind listening to my theory on it, I've bought a bunch of these things in the past. If you go with the smaller size, ultimately programs and apps and everything starts consuming more and more space. And then eventually you just basically, it becomes so slow and so obsolete that you can't even use it anymore. So, but the other side of that is, of course, they stopped supporting that for like 8 or 9 years anyway. So I just, those are my two things. I generally go for the largest size I can get. I would think, the suggestion about a hood size is probably a good idea.
Okay. Anyone else?
But I hope we go up a size, just the gigabytes.
Capacity.
I feel like it kind of slows down, things get full of the 128.
So are you saying go up to the 12.9-inch?
No, keep the 11-inch, but use the 256
Oh, okay.
gigabyte size.
I've got 12.9, I've had since 2017, it's had all my college classes on, it's 128, and they close to be there, but that's up to you. We've got the money there, Mayor, we've got, I don't know if I put it in there or not, you put in the line item in the budget, $100,000 to upgrade all this. Bassett Electronics can do it for less than about 17.2. So we got money there to buy the city.
Okay. Say again?
We have a lot of photos and videos, that's what's gonna be there.
So these do have cameras, so you can probably expect anything a council member doesn't like about the city, they're probably gonna take a picture of it and send it to you. So keep that in mind. Yeah, so middle of the road, 11-inch, 256 gig. That's about as middle as it gets. Anybody opposed?
We need that much?
It's $100 difference between a 128 and a 256.
And if he can get them off of the government.
Like on the screen, the Apple state local government website.
Yeah, so that's even significantly cheaper than what you have.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Well, then you gotta figure out which color you want. Which tool?
Okay.
The slate or the gray or the silver?
Comments for them?
Yep, that's the next question.
They also sell things to protect you from things like this.
Yeah.
They have basically their otter boxes that goes into protect you from dropping on the ground, which I do regularly.
Silver cases work well, they're very cheap.
That's for all of you to decide.
I think you have to get the protection,
I would get a protective box for it.
cover the screen, all that stuff, as long as they get insurance. I know one thing that if you have a problem with it, the only knowledge I have, if you don't take it back to an Apple store or an Apple location, you're gonna have a hard time getting a warranty. So that's something to think about also.
Not much of a warranty without Apple Care. So that's something you might want to consider.
Yeah, I would.
And I don't know if you have a city credit card or not, but there are some credit cards that extend the warranty like for years as well. I think they got them too. That's what I do.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Mayor, I heard you say 256 gigabytes, 11-inch, and you said only because it's $100 difference. No, I'm always about money here, saving as much as I can. If we can use the 128 gigabyte, and it does what we need it to do, and then use that extra $500 to purchase the hard. If the 128 gigs can do what we need it to do, save the $100 per each iPad and put it toward the hard.
Are you wanting the Apple Care as well?
The who?
The Apple Care as well, the insurance?
Of course, I don't see us buying it.
Is that a motion?
I'll just simply say, it's a good point. I'll just simply say, it's not what we'll do today, it's what we'll do in 2 or 3 years. Throw them all away. So,
Because it's what? Because it's not enough gigabytes?
yeah, because, apps have increased in usage and so on, and that's what I've seen, like my wife's phone, that she had for like the last 2 years, I ended up using my old phone. But before that, I mean, she couldn't do anything on her phone except to look at it and read emails. She couldn't do any apps because it just wasn't a power on the phone. And it's only 4 years old, 5 years old.
So I
but
take
she
it
got the
we
phone
would,
besides.
I'm sorry, sir. So I take it we would never upgrade it.
I think for the $100 fees, that would be me, but that's,
When you look at some of the packets we got, that fit, especially with pictures and diagrams, it's really takes up a lot of space. Jeff usually brings, and so I think that with the extra $100 for that.
So
Speed is essential for us to be able to, hold on a second, I'm trying to find something. $100.
we're looking at a 11-inch, 256 gigabyte with Apple Care with cases.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to make that motion?
So,
Does anyone want to second that motion?
I said it.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call a roll.
Councilmember McGuire?
Yes.
Councilmember McCure?
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard?
yes,
Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Color doesn't
I'll take the dark one.
I was just gonna say, as far as cases, when you say that, I had the cases that Apple sells for the 11s on the screen, but you were talking about the OtterBoxes because they are more survivable through a higher drop. Do you want to go with the OtterBoxes or just the Apple case?
Yeah, the outer boxes do have an element of being waterproof. If you spill your coffee on them.
take this color.
That's not us.
Yeah. Whenever we said case, waterproof case, everyone in agreement, waterproof.
I don't care.
I think maybe you should do that separately and present too, because some of our cases can be really bulky there.
Yeah.
And expensive, unnecessarily expensive. So, it may be, and I'm not sure that, I know my new third iPhone is not waterproof, but it's very water resistant, unlike that previous ones that just get any water on and die. So I don't know if that new iPads are or not, but that'd be some consideration as well. So maybe you want to address that.
I'll look into the waterproof cases and see what other models are out there for that next meeting we have, bring that up. So
We look forward to your suggestions.
He's gonna be 2021 model, 2020 or.
I'm not sure if the.
Refurbished on eBay?
No. But see, even on this, I mean, if we were to order it tomorrow, there's still, according to the Apple site, 2 to 3 weeks for delivery.
Yeah.
So it's not anything. I think these are the 21 models, both the 11 and the 12.9.
I don't want to pay with them.
And the only thing we released for 22 is the iPad mini.
It's not a toy anyways, we don't care.
Yeah.
All right. Move forward. Item number 18, CDBG loan forgiveness request.
Okay, I just mentioned that you guys have already talked, but basically, I see these come in and we discuss them and so on, and I suggested to the city manager and asked the Guardian's input with regard to my suggestion, but basically, just like the code enforcement forgiveness, the lien forgiveness thing, we really need to have some criteria that we can go by. So, a list of criteria to be consistent with the decisions you make with giving these things, because they're all over the place. But we should be able to get some basic ones down and start building on a policy, just like we did for the matrix and code enforcement. It won't necessarily be a matrix, it'll be like these things will be considered, and if it meets this one, it's okay. If this is the problem, then no, that type of thing. And that way, we're more fair, and nobody can argue that we treat one person differently than the other.
Agreed. Are you looking for specific input tonight or just simply conceptual?
Just agreement to have in place, to toy with it and look at and put together, and I'll bring something to you. We can make your suggestions based on that.
I think it's a great idea. Is anyone opposed to that? No?
So move if necessary.
You need a motion, Jerry?
No, I think this was your general rules like that.
You have it. We have a addition of number 19. Jeff had talked about it in brief, but this is for the Central Florida Regional Planning Council would like to put together the 10-year water supply plan. This is something that we are supposed to do. Jeff, do you want to brief us on this?
Yep, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, just to give you the skinny on it, this is it's a Florida statute requirement. It's the city's 10-year water supply plan. It essentially is updated every 5 years following the Water Management District's adoption of their regional water supply plan. Ultimately, it's an assessment of the city's public water system, projected water needs, looking at demand over the 20-year period, as I mentioned before, and in this case, that would look out to 2040. The focus would be on the immediate 10 years through the 2030 planning period. But essentially, the scope of work would be preparation of a data and analysis, includes inventory of the city's water system, water use permit, annual public supply reports, and then population projections. And we take all that information and run a calculation to see how the city's current system is running, and then looking at the population projections, what that demand will be over that 10 and 20-year planning period. And then ultimately, if there's any comprehensive plan amendments that would need to be amended in your city's comp plan based on those findings, we would update that as well. It's a project we've helped the city on the last 2 times, dating back to the early 2010s. I think the last one was updated in 2016. The regional water supply plan, I believe, was adopted in 2020 in November. There's an 18-month clock per the Water Management District and Florida statutes. There's some gray area there for sure. We've never seen anyone fall out of compliance in any way by not adopting it by that 18-month period. But the goal would be to work as hard to get it done in that time period. Of course, that would be probably by, I think it's next May, but we'd work to probably get that done by summertime, no later than early fall.
Jeff, I see here a fee of $15,000. Is that standard from city to city, or is it?
It is. It is. We base those. It's a fixed fee. We base those based on city population and size and coordination. Of course, we'll do some coordination with Highlands County as well. When we look at your all's supply or service area, we take into consideration, what's happening in the county as well. So there's some coordination with that, but it differs based on city to city. Of course, we, as the Regional Planning Council, we serve a lot of different size local governments. Jerry's familiar with, Bowling Green, Zolfo Springs, real small communities. It'd be a little bit different, there. But the 15,000 is our general fixed rate for communities of Avon Park size.
Jeff, I noticed in the agreement that you didn't include the public records language that I put in these agreements in the past. Could you please add that?
Yes, sir. I apologize if that wasn't in there. Yeah, we will certainly do that.
No problem. I just simply say that anybody that is going to raise the motion, just please include that that's going to, with the added public records language.
Okay. Yep. We will do that, and we'll get a copy over to the city manager if you all approve tonight.
Yeah, approve tonight, it can still be signed by the mayor without having that.
Mayor, if I can add something on the cost for the rest of the council.
Yes.
For you too. when we received this from Jeff, this was new to me, Rick, we didn't even know about, so we looked into it, but we just couldn't take it in our procurement policy, we'd have to get the quotes, but we reached out, we only found one, actually, it's one of our continuing, engineering agreements, they wanted $25,000 to do it, and we couldn't even find anybody else, there's somebody from the code said we need to do it. And Jeff also, at the BOCC said you work with Highlands County, they've got an engineering firm out of Hope County's always reached out to this one who's doing ours. So.
Okay. Anyone wish to make a motion? Make a motion to approve contract with Central Florida Regional Planning. Just to include the public records documentation that Jerry had mentioned. This will be for the 10-year water supply plan. That covered, Jerry.
So we can say so.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember McCure, Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Demar,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. City manager updates.
Okay, last meeting, you directed me to give a call to the manager of FAA in Orlando. I called up there, had probably a 15-minute talk. He very reluctant to talk to me, said he'd probably get in trouble for talking to me, actually. It's out of his hands at this point. They have sent off the draft lease to their compliance division in DC. And from there, he was told the compliance division wants to go to their chief counsel to look at. And he said that the main thing is this going to set a national precedent for leasing entire airports. And they want to make sure they get it right. He didn't even know a time frame when they get back to him. He was completely out of it at this point. And he did mention what David, with his 39.5 years in the FAA, said that most of those employees higher up in DC won't even be there for most of December. They're off, and he told me the same thing. But outside counsel we have hired is working on something to see if he can get something moving a little faster. And that's pretty much all I can say on that. But like I said, he told me twice up there, he probably get in trouble if he even talk to me. But he did believe it was wrong that the city not hear something. So
Appreciate you keeping it on the down low and not mentioning any public meetings.
Did the council ever say that we actually needed a comment from the FAA?
what's that?
Did our council ever say that we actually needed approval or comment from the FAA?
Well, I believe in anything that emails they sent him said that the council basically said that we would wait, we would move ahead without it, but that'd
Okay.
come down to your decision. But
All right.
I'm hoping we're gonna hear probably after the first of the year, but Jerry's laughing, but we're hoping so.
Okay.
Government's working very slow.
What else do you have, Frank?
That big grant, it was on here, but the, what was it called? Build Back Better grant for millions of dollars that we assisted putting in to come through us for FAM. I talked to JT earlier. We did end up getting an email that we didn't get it. There was only one entity. I don't know who it was. JT said, I think said it was an Osceola County guy in Florida. So, but he's working on other things already, going to be working for next 3 weeks on something. So I heard from the warden out at APCI. And he had talked to me a couple months ago about seeing if he could get approval to get us a crew or two out here that we would actually supervise, because they still don't have enough officers. I told him that our current one doesn't, it's NA, doesn't allow that. So he's supposed to be working with his headquarters on getting an agreement down here that I get to Jerry to see and allowing that. I brought up about Bassett Audio here. They came in, gave us a quote. It was about, actually, he was doing our scope basically so we could go out, because we thought it'd be a lot more, but it's a little under, it's 17.2 or something. And what was the other one? 20.
Oh, that's the one before the cameras.
Yeah, but the other quote you got was like much higher, and then the third one wouldn't come out because of the drive. David zonked out on me here for a
No,
minute.
I'm trying to think of what the other-
Anyways, I was over here when we were going through with David for a part of it, just to make sure that we were just getting the scope in case it was gonna be over the 25,000, but I mean, he was, probably most people know Tony anyways, and they do great work.
Yep.
So with that, we got our quotes, and if you're good, I'll move forward with the Bassett electronic.
Could you go over exactly what they're replacing?
David?
When Tony came in here, we talked about all the microphone systems that are the original system that he said his company put in over 15 years ago is not what's currently in place now. They've been rewired and put in other pieces and parts that don't match. And we've got the mixture of Volkswagen, Chevy, Ford all in here, and half the stuff doesn't work because it is just that. So they would go through and rewire all the microphones on the proper wiring, redo the equipment room so that the mixer, and our biggest request to him was all of this stuff has to feed into Zoom without us having to have this thing to record out of the ceiling. Additionally, that camera that's back there in the middle to be Zoom compliant so that we could use that instead of having, again, to set up the floor camera. So initially that's what we're asking them to do. And then however many of you have seen the spaghetti nest underneath the desk here, they were going to pull all that wire out and just basically run one Cat5 that would run all this stuff. And so all that wiring would be gone, and make sure that, I think we asked them for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 wireless microphones, just so that in the event that we have people sitting out there again, we don't have to have ugly, wired microphones dangling on other desks, and everything that would work together. So they're going to redo the box in there and get everything up to date.
Didn't include anything for the auxiliary room, if we have spillover with having I know that we have speakers out there so they can hear what's going on in here.
So what he's talking about there is if we exceed the capacity of the room,
right,
we have two choices. We have to adjourn the meeting,
right,
or we can have them in another room where they can see and hear everything and then walk over when it's their chance to speak.
right. I don't think we talked about that. I know that the speakers that are in here that run on this also run into code enforcement and throughout this building. So,
Okay, but you still have to have some visual as well.
right.
Because it's a really good point. We need to do that because the only other choice is to go to, we've been to the community center and things like that. But to reconvene here, you gotta have somebody here to catch everybody that's coming to this door, or send them over to community center and all that stuff. It becomes a mess. But I think it's a good idea to look at that as part of the deal.
See if there's a workable solution for it. Let us know.
We can ask them that in there.
Okay. Anyone opposed to that?
Not at all.
Okay, you have your direction. Anything else?
The mall bid, which we haven't vetted, we just got on Thursday closing, I think. We had only one put in for it. Only one showed up to pre-bid. It was Fancy Plants Lawn and Landscaping LLC out of Fort Meade for $74,852.74.
Okay.
So we're gonna vet that, bring it back to you.
Whenever you do that, will you also evaluate that against what it would cost us to have our staff do it?
Yep, Melody's working on that. We'll have actually got it worked up, but we'll bring that to you too.
Very good. Okay. I wish we would have had more, but we only turn in what turns into us, right? So.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anything else for the good of the city?
Make sure everybody has a happy, safe, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Agreed. One more thing, the Councilwoman Ricker had requested to be put on another board at whenever we were setting up the different boards, and she was wanting some more obligations apparently, and I recently got appointed to a different county board, and so I thought it appropriate that I would put her up as a suggestion for the Heartland Transportation Council. the HRTPO. It's a board that meets quarterly, basically discusses a lot of transportation, DOT related things. I can provide more information, but the county staff is who would give you all the particulars on it, but is that something that you would be agreeable to? Okay, I'll suggest that. Obviously, the council needs to approve that. So that'll be my motion. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember McCure,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Devine,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
motion passed.
So that'll be subject to the county commission approving that as well. That's all that I have. Anything else? Seeing none, I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, please.
Seeing no opposition, we are adjourned.